Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Wild Woman art process. So again, if you are part of my Wild Woman art and meditation class, this is building upon the things that we've already started in our meditations and through the classes. And if you're just joining as part of the YouTube family, then welcome. Hopefully there's some information that you can glean from this, and maybe if you'd like to fill in more of the blanks or have some of the meditations behind it, please contact me and join one of the classes. So what we're going to do in the second part is look at the face that we're going to create, the back of the head, the headdress, how to configure that all on your wild woman person, and sort of the finishing pieces. How do you make the clothes, whatever those are going to be? So that's what this is about. Again, bring your creativity, let your intuition kick in. I'm going to show you processes the way that I've come to do them. That doesn't mean that's the way that you have to do them. This is an inexact science, and your creativity and what shows up is just as important as anything else we've done. Okay, so I'm going to shift over to the above head camera, and we're going to get started with some of the things. So here we go. Give me just a second and see you in a minute over here. Okay, you can see some of the things I've already pulled out. I forgot to mention in the first video, one of the things that you should have gotten as part of your process was, part of your kit that I sent you was torn apart flowers. So you'll see these here, but you might have something that's a little different color. I don't know, depending on what color material I sent you. Typically I try to send some flowers that are complementary, but what you'll notice is that these are silk flowers. I've just really pulled them apart. So if you go out and buy your own colors and you want to take the flower apart, you just basically pop it off the stem and then you can start to peel it back. Some of them are glued. Don't be too afraid of that. This one was glued as well. I don't know how well you can see that. There's some of the glue on here. I just try to pull it apart gently enough that I can still use it, right? Sometimes I cut them anyway, cut them down to the size that I want. So, the fact that they're glued doesn't really mean much. Now you may have gotten a face that is plain like this. Again, these are the faces that the artist Lynn Belisle, I hope I'm saying her name correctly. She creates these and I buy them to send to you guys in the art kits. Sometimes they come this color, and I've gotten some lately that are more like this. So depending on what you've gotten, you may or may not want to change the color. I love terracotta, but it's not always what I want to have on the face. So today I'm going to show you just a quick possibility for changing the colors. So with these faces, they take really well to just regular acrylic paint. I shop a lot at Michael's. This is a student grade acrylic. This happens to be a gloss medium because I'm gonna use that to thin down the paint a little bit. But I'll use the basic paints as well. I did bring some gold in here because I want to throw a little bit of color to bring out the textures a little bit more. So we're going to experiment a little bit. One of the things you have to know about me is that I do not like to use palettes. So we're going to do this finger mixing, as I call it, for myself. And basically, we just want to shift the color based on our preference and how much we do or don't want to match it to the cloth that you have. So I guess I should show you that. For this particular one, I'm using this ombre gray to black sort of cloth. So I wanted to shift the face to be something a little more silvery. And I'm using things like the flowers to bring a little more color into it. And you'll see in some of the beads and things that I chose, it has a little more color there as well. So I'm just going to put a little bit. I've got gel medium on my fingers already. I'm going to get some of the silver on there. The gel medium basically is just to thin down the paint. It looks white, but it will dry clear. And so I just kind of mix this on here in this inexact process. So when I get a little, I'm a right-handed person, so I'm going to get enough on there on my right hand that I can show you guys what I'm going to do. So basically, I like to just go over like this. You know, it's up to you how much you want to get into these nooks and crannies. It definitely has some texture to it. So if you want the silver to be all over the place, then I would definitely try to get into those nooks and crannies. I'm just using my finger and trying to push it in at this point. It does leave, as you may be able to tell, it's still got a little bit of that terracotta look to it, but now we certainly have some silver definitely showing up a little bit more than the terracotta. And again, I'm just looking at where the blobs are, how much I want the silver to be in any place, certain place. You can already see the transformation that this is having. Again, using that intuition and what your aesthetic is, let it guide you to how much you want to put on or not. Okay. Again, not an exact science. This is up to you. I kind of like the edges to be done, but I also like the happy little accidents if we go in a Bob Ross direction and just do this is why I don't use paintbrushes also with this part. I just like to see sort of what shows up, right? What areas are not planned and kind of the cool stuff that shows up after that. So there's my little silver damask that I'm going to use. I want to give that a second to dry. So again, for this and for these, I always do a little bit of the acrylic medium. This one comes in a tube, but sometimes you can get them in a big, like a bigger container. This is used to water it down a little bit. So the thing about this that's good is it's the same material as paint. It just doesn't have pigment in it. So when you're trying to water down your color, where you don't want it to be too bold for whatever you're doing, this is perfect to make it more of what's called a glaze. So that means it's more of the material, the medium, and less of the pigment. And that's basically what we've put on here. And I don't know how well you can see that this is shown up. There's the terracotta is still showing through, but definitely she looks a little more silvery. Now, as I'm looking at it, I don't think I want to do the next color on there. I was going to use some of this phthalo blue, which is a very rich, dark blue. It's lovely stuff. I'll show you a little bit here, kind of what that looks like, right? Maybe we'll try a little bit on here and see what happens. I didn't give myself enough. It dried too quick. So I kind of was thinking about this for the cracks a little bit. But again, if you rub it on there, you're going to have a little bit of change without it being too planned, I guess is the word I want to use. I actually kind of like how this is looking, so we're going to go with it. And can you see the difference here here's the side that has the blue on it. It's bringing up some of these highlights here, and then the side that doesn't. And I like things that are a little bit off center. I'm gonna just smush this with a little bit of water on there, a little bit more, so that one side's maybe a little more blue, the other side's a little more silver. I don't know if you can see that, but both sides are different. So here's one side and here's the other side. Both sides are different. Okay. So let that dry just for a second. Acrylic paints dry really, really quickly. So it won't be but a minute before that's done. All right, so the next part, we're going to use some of these flowers to try to configure what we want to do. And I have a little bit over here. You can't see them very well, but they're the little beads, and bits that I have decided go along with the seeds that I wanted to pull from the meditations and symbols that I like and I've learned about over the years for myself. And we've got to decide what colors we want to go with this. Now, I'm a kind of person that likes to bring a bunch of color in, but you might want to have your piece of cloth here with you as you're doing this. And I actually think I want to bring in some of this blue. That seems like a little bit of red, a little bit of green, and this blue kind of go nicely. Play around with it a little bit. Play with the configuration. Don't be afraid to offset. So for instance, if you want this to be more at the top, right, where it's more in a configuration of a triangle, and then you put this on here, and then you put your face maybe a little bit lower. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. Okay, so that's what I'm going to start with. I kind of like this configuration. What I don't quite like is how cupped this is. So I want to trim these down a little bit, I think. I don't know if that will help, but I just want to see if I can get this to be a little less cupped. Maybe I need to pull them apart a little bit more. There we go. So it had some gluing it together there. So I just pulled it apart, and that'll give me a little bit more playroom. And it doesn't have to be the shape that it was holding unless I decide I want it to be there. Okay. So these are going to be the back pieces. I do like this idea of there not being as much on where the chin is going to be. So I'm going to specifically make it that way. I'm going to take my glue gun, which I put over here. I'm going to maybe glue this together a little bit here. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm on this this special kind of cutting board. This thing for it's over my table. And this is one of the things that if you're going to be doing this over your nice dining room table, I might suggest making sure you have that. So we're going to then put the next layer on. Again, being careful of your fingers here. I'm going to use the tip of my glue gun to kind of squish that down and in. Now, if you're bringing anything from your meditations, and part of the meditation we looked at, what are some of the things in the head, thoughts or patterns that you want to either amplify or that you want to dial down? You know, you might be able to write it on a piece of paper, or let's say you want to have clear thoughts, and so you're going to put a clear bead. Let me get in front of that sun here. A clear bead on the inside to be symbolic of having the thoughts you want in your head. This is the time to put these in here. Folded up piece of paper, a note to yourself, crystal, a bead, something like that, easy to stick in here. It's a bit concave, right? So you can see here. So we've got room to stick something underneath. So I would go ahead and do that now if that's something you want to do. Once that's done, you can take your glue gun. I like to do it this way. You might have a preference. It's totally up to you. I like to put the glue along the edge. Again, being mindful of your fingers. There we go. And then we're gonna put this a little offset. Just kind of make sure I wiggle it down in, and very quickly, all of a sudden, it's now connected very easily with the glue gun. It's one of the reasons I very much like the glue gun. It's so easy. Okay, the next piece of this is a little bit more, I don't know, tedious maybe, complicated maybe. Got to be a little more careful with this one. And usually I have my needle nose pliers with me. There they are. So if you have a pair of needle nose pliers, these are very helpful for this next step, because what we're going to be doing is placing beads and other things around the outer edge. And because things are so small, it's very easy to get the glue on your finger. So instead of using your finger, we can use the needle nose to place and hold things very effectively, okay? So I just have an assortment of different beads here. I like to build these up. I like to play on colors and just sort of see what happens. I don't know if I have enough here to do what I want to show you exactly, but we'll at least get it started. Okay, and this bead actually, I guess it could be for up here. Maybe that one will go up here, I'm not sure. I had intended it for the down on the bodice. All right, so I like these freshwater pearls. So I'm gonna start putting some of these in. Don't be shy with the glue. We want those to stay. And basically what I like to do, the way that I see it, is we're framing the face and kind of making a better transition between the face and the flower, okay? And that's the whole intention here. I plan it to a certain degree, but again, try to let your creativity step in and kind of show you where things are going to be. This is part of following your intuition. I'm going to throw in some other beads in there that maybe are of a lighter color. And I'm also thinking about the bigger aesthetic. Like, what do I want this to look like in terms of the colors that are going together, right? So we do want to think about the aesthetic and how it's going to play out. Okay. So I'm just going to do this for a little bit, and maybe, let's see, what would be best? I think I might like to do some of this. This is, I like to use materials from everywhere. So this is actually a tie back for fancy curtains. And it just happens to have these really cool singular strands of these neat looking beads, which has some silver on it. So, and it's a little bit blue. So in alignment with what's going on as my color scheme so far, if I can get this untangled, there we go. I'm going to cut off one of these. I don't know if you can see this very well, but I'm trying to give myself enough space. This is where this can come in. The needle nose pliers too can hold it at a place where it gives you some of the inside thread or whatever it is. Sometimes it's metal, and we'll be able to cut it and not have all the beads go flying, which is a definite plus. If I can get it on there. There we go. So now I have the single strand, right? And I'm going to glue this, I think. I'm going to have it be something like that along the edge. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. Let me go ahead and do it here. I'm going to put some glue gun down. One of the things that's important when you do take a strand like this is that you make sure you get the top of the strand where the beads could come out. Make sure you get that good and glued in, because otherwise your beads will start flying everywhere. Okay, so that got a little bit messy. What we're going to do is we're going to come in with another bead and make it look a little bit nicer. Okay. So I've got this strand, had a little silver piece that I put right there. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. I'm going to shove it in a little bit more so that kind of goes a little bit better. And so we have a bit of a structure starting here. Oh, and the sun is right there. Let's see if I can block it a little bit. Where is it? There it is. Oh, it's right there. Okay. So we have some of this freshwater pearls. We have a little bit of silver coming in. We have this bit that we just put in. And now as you're doing this, again, aesthetic sense here, let your sense of what you want kind of guide you. Do you like how this is looking? Do you want to throw another color in there? I think I'm going to put a little bit of green to go with this green in the back here. So I have these glittery little beads, and I want to put one right here, I think. We're going to put one over on the other side too, just for some balance. From the standpoint of like the art, if you want your piece to have cohesion and to look a bit balanced, it can be helpful to put the same kind of color. So for instance, we're up in the headdress, or what I'm calling the headdress, and we're going to be going down into the dress. And so bringing some of these colors into the beads that you might put around the dress helps with the cohesion, right? We're going to put another silvery bead on this side. Okay, and so we're starting to build up, as you can see, some layers here. I'm going to put a little white clear one here. Okay. And I like to do this too when this is not on the, we haven't attached it to our body frame yet, because it gives, when it's flat like this, it gives you some space to be able to do a little more control with it, have a little bit more control. You're not on a, what would I say, a concave surface. It's nice and flat. Okay, so I'm a Dia de los Muertos fan. So I threw a couple of little skulls in there. I don't know how well you guys can see this. Again, with the sun coming right there. Goodness. So there she is. Okay, the beginnings. Sorry about the sunlight here. There we go. The beginnings of the face. The freshwater pearls. There's glittery green ones in there. And I'm just kind of layering it up. Now you can see these little holes. Sometimes I will fill them with different beads and material, but it's up to you. You get to decide. I'm going to leave this with just one side with the dangle, I think, and maybe put a couple of other beads on here. That will sort of make it look a little more finished and covered up a bit. I'm going to put one of those little skulls right here, because I just love these. These are like these iridescent purple kind of, purple and blue kind of skulls. We're going to put a few more bits here with the silver ones, just so it looks a little more finished. And layer in a couple of small ones. I'm going to put one in the little divot here. There we go. I'm going to put one of these little silver ones, kind of a glittery grayish silver that'll go with the material really well. I'm going to put one up there too. Let me show you that difference here. Okay, again, let me block the sunlight. There we go. Okay, so starting to see how she's, let me figure out a way to, there we go. Starting to see how she's shifting and changing. Okay. So once you have that done, and we're going to stop there just because I don't want to spend too much time on here, you get the idea, and take this to the end that you want to. I have a tendency to go drastically either way or another. So this one's, the level of beads around here seems pretty good to me. Actually, let me just get one more in this little hole just so it's more consistent. Got one more little hole over here that I want to fill. Okay, got that. On those little holes, once you get the glue gun in, your bead will kind of roll into it, I found over time. So it's kind of easy. So there's that one. Okay, so now let's bring our body over. This is where you get to decide where on the body you want her to be. Now, if you want it to be like this one, looks like it's looking up a little bit with this. If you want it to be looking up like that, what we're going to need to do is take some of your material, your t-shirt material, and build it up a little bit. And I do want there to be some behind her head. So I'm just going to chop off a piece of this material, the t-shirt material, and I'm going to fold it up kind of like we did for the making the body. And you're just going to have to play around a little bit with it. So like, how much of a cushion do you want? This one seems a little bit big. I don't want it to hang out over the top, so I'm going to cut it down a bit and try to fold it maybe a little bit more. If you want more on one side or the other, you want to put more of a bump on one side. This side's flatter. This side has more of a bump. And then we'll see what that looks like on the head. Okay. So this is where it's looking so far. I'm going to throw some glue on this and get it stuck down here. Again, you want to get some to hold it. And then as you adjust it, and I'm going to sort of squeeze the sides in a little bit to hold it down a little bit better. And I'm going to glue as I go with that one. Again, watching out for your fingers because it will burn the heck out of you if you're not careful. And this is building a base. So basically we're going to use this not only for having a space for the head to have more of a place to land and to shift the angle of the face, but it also gives us space on the back that we're going to build onto. So this is getting there. This is a little bit of a process. Sometimes it takes a bit if your head is not at the angle that you want. It takes a bit to build it up. And hold that until it's dry, right? This part looks terrible. We're not going to see that part. Don't worry too much about it. There is finishing that we're going to be doing. The bottom line is if you need to, build up the space behind the head, you want it to be enough, to be thick enough and to be on there strongly enough so that it doesn't fall off. I love how this is showing up, that lovely phthalo blue that I put a little bit on the face. Okay, so now we've got this kind of, I don't know, it looks a little bit like a funky space at this point. And then we're going to put this right on here, okay? Again, if there's anything that you want to write on this, any information that you brought from the meditations that you want to bring forth and have behind as you step into this new year with your wild woman, or if it's not the new year when you're watching this, the things that you want to foster, amplify, or make better for yourself, go ahead and stick those on there. Now, as you may have noticed, I just glue gunned the heck out of the back of that, and I stuck it on top of the material that we posted there, okay? Don't worry too much about this. We can always use some of the fleece material to cover and make this look nicer, but we're also going to be using this material, and you can see what might need to be done then. Whoops, I stuck her to the table. There we go. Okay, still a little warm. So the back part came off just a little bit because I stuck her to the table inadvertently. It's one of the reasons you have these boards underneath you, these, not boards, these little plastic cutting board kinds of things. They really help. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Not sure how she's reading. The silver really shows up on the screen. It's really not as silver as it looks. There's a lot of the terracotta coming through that this is, this kind of pinkish color is picking up on, but I'm not sure it's showing up so much there. Okay, so now we have her on, and part of what I always do is just to make sure that we have exactly what we need. This one is a little too chunky for me on the back, so what I'd like to do is just cover it. I want to make sure it is covered well, so I'm going to fold up this piece here, and I think I'm going to have it go on like this because it just seems like it needs a little more support and cushion under there. So I'm just going to load up the glue gun again, loading it up, and then I'm going to put this over the top. These are the very unglamorous parts. And these parts you won't be seeing the final result. So no worries. It's not going to look funky chunky there when you're in your final piece. Okay, so once this dries, you just want to make sure it's on there really well. All right. I think from this point, we're going to go to putting the dress together, or what I would be considering the dress. Now you can use multiple kinds of material. I'm going to show you my very first one here. So you might recall that, we used multiple things. So here's the regular material that I used just to wrap around the arms for sleeve-like things. It's also used for this skirt kind of area. These are little bits of leather that I used for the belt. And then this is kind of like an extension of the belt, a cool cloisonne piece that I wanted to be able to use on her, okay? So this is the next part that we're going into. If I can get her to settle back in. All right, so you play around with this one just a little bit. I think what I'd like to do, this part has the fringe, and I want the fringe to hang down below, right? So I think I'm going to take this piece, this top part, and maybe I want to do just like the bodice in the other one. I don't want to have a solid shirt, but I'd like to have, a hint of what the rest of the dress will be. So I'm going to do a little technique on this, this piece of material. If you cut up one side, right, and you stop before you cut through. So right there, I did not cut through. And then we flip it and we cut the other way. Again, it's not cutting all the way through and stopping before you get to the end. Of course, this depends on how much you want. So just with 2 cuts, I've gotten about this much, okay? I think I want one more. So we're gonna flip it over again. Oh, no, wait, I have to go this way. So the opposite. So last time I cut this way down, this time I'm gonna cut up here. And on this last one, I'm gonna cut through because I think that'll be a good amount for me to use to do the part that I wanna do next. You guys know this already about me. I am not particular about it being perfect. I kind of like the unusualness that comes. I'm gonna move this part up out of the way, and I'm just gonna experiment with how I put this on, okay? So similar to the first one I showed you, it's really just wrapping. That's not quite enough space though. Let me wrap. So I'm gonna hold this piece here. We're gonna wrap, wrap, wrap. Wrap back a little bit maybe. And then maybe we could fit this back in here. But see, just trying to bring some form to this. Wrapping forward, wrapping backward. Having some variation in the color and how it's showing up. Okay, so that's a quick bodice sort of thing. I kind of like how that looks, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is just, again with the glue gun, with the back piece that's here, I'm gonna put this solidly in and just hold it down for a minute. Let it dry just a bit, okay? So far, this is how it's looking. A little bit of a tall neck here for me. So I think I might come back with some more material because this is plenty for me to do the other part that I want to do. So I'm going to cut a little more off of this. I can fold it up and make it go a little bit faster. We're going to see about bringing this a little bit more closer around the neck. There we go. I already like that better. Okay. And pull it a little tighter. I'm going to put a little bit of glue here where this end is. Okay, so you're getting the idea. Again, this is not a must do it this way kind of process. This is what do you think you want to do? Whatever you think goes along with the story you want to tell or the look you want to have. And again, let your intuition guide you. Trust your intuition, trust your creativity. We all have it. Okay. And then I think I'm going to let that one come down in the front kind of like this. So I'm going to glue this bottom part in to where her, I guess, bodice is. And again, holding it with my glue gun, smushing it in with the glue gun. Okay. So there we have a simple version of the top. Now there's so many ways that you could do this. You could take a bigger piece of material and cover over the top of it and create like a shirt. There's so many ways you could do this. Again, let your creativity flow. So before we get into the lower skirt part, there's a couple of things I'm thinking. So this is another piece of material that you guys may have gotten, something similar in your packet. I'd like this to be the basis of the belt. Kind of brings together some of these reddish tones up in the head and bringing them together down in the bottom. So I'm going to cut off a chunk. Get this here where I can cut it better. I want it to be a bit of a wide belt. Okay. And then one of the things that I'm going to do to add to the skirt that I'm going to make, so I'm going to put some panels of this color on around where we put our crinoline bits. Okay. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be the same size. We're going to be being creative with this as we go. And so I'm going to glue these on. I'm going to do this kind of quick. I'm going to do the back part. And glue this piece on. I'm really not paying attention to exactly where I'm putting them. I just, for my purposes anyway, your purposes may be different, but for my purposes, I just like this as another layer of stuff that you can get with just adding, again, the layers upon layers for some volume and for some interest. So here's what that looks like. Not terribly finished, but never fear, that's what this belt is for. So when we get the skirt on, we're going to put it over like this, okay? Or something similar. All right. So I want to show you a couple of possibilities with this. So this is going to be, for me, this is going to be a skirt because I like the dangles. But what I've done with this before too is turned these big pieces of material into like a shawl. And so for that kind of thing, if you don't want to do a skirt or you have some different ideas about what you want to use with the material, you can cover, excuse me, you can wrap it up and put it over the top like this if you'd like, and then have, as you can see, sort of a shawl thing happening, which is really cool as well. It's totally up to you. For my purposes today, I'm gonna start, whoops, that one needs a little more glue. Hold that on there. Okay, so this, because I want a skirt, I'm going to start this at sort of an angle. So I'm going to take the corner, I'm going to hold it in. I'm just going to start twisting and wrapping. Twisting and wrapping. Okay, and you can see it's starting to develop its own kind of nature. But look at the bottom here. We've got some volume. Oh, not that part. We've got some interest. It'll hang. When you're hanging it up, this will hang below where she is. Okay. If you don't like it being that far up, or that far down, I'm sorry, just twist it up a little bit more. Put it up a little bit higher. And so this is basically what it looks like from the front, right? Now, if I want to make it sort of, to really show the difference of color here, I can glue it specifically to be in a certain space, right? So that's what I'm going to do here. I like this being kind of an ending point. So I'm going to put this big block of glue and hold that down. And maybe even here, I want to put some glue underneath there to hold it in this position as well. Don't worry too much about how that ends up looking. Again, we're finishing it, so it's not terribly important to get that done, okay? So we have the skirt on, if you've chosen to do a skirt. Here's a raw edge that again, for me, the raw edges are great. If you're not a huge fan, then definitely you might fold that over, right? There's a couple different ways we can go about this. However that might look for you, okay? You can still see some of this other material underneath. Okay, and then it's all going to start pulling together. So I want to see just how this looks to me. And actually, I really like that. Kind of like how that is starting to make a little more of a belt sort of statement. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so again, you just glue gun it. I'm going to change sort of how I'm doing this. I'm going to start at the beginning here because I want this to look really finished in the front. So that's where I'm more concerned about it. So I'm putting a bunch of glue up there. We're going to take this, whatever good edge you want, and we're going to put it on there and sort of hold it tight again, giving it a minute to dry. Okay. And then we're going to flip it over and finish it off on the back where you can overlap these pieces and have a done part of it. Again, just gluing it on there with the glue gun, holding it for a minute, bringing this other side over, holding it for a minute, watching out for your fingers. Now this gives it a little bit of an opportunity to finish if you do want the back side. So I always put my back sides up against the wall of my Wild Women. So I'm not terribly worried about the back. If you are, then finish it off however you feel like it would be better, a little nicer, a little more finished. So there is an example of how it's looking. Whoops, there's that sun again. Okay, and I've got the dangle. All right, so there she is. So as I'm looking at this, part of what I initially thought would be too much, I think is going to be part of what I want in there. So this was going to be behind the face here at the beginning, but I thought it just might be a little too much, and it's not. So I'm going to amend this a little bit. I'm going to put some of this behind here so it ties in a little bit more to this bodice part. Okay, that makes sense. So before we get too far along, I want to add these in. How do we want to do this? Let's see. I want to think on this just for a second. Maybe they need to go behind this way. Okay, so I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to kind of wing it and just sort of see what happens. So let's put a little bit of glue in here to hold this, glue to hold this, and then we're going to glue this other piece down. And I want this to be able to be visible in the front as well. so I don't burn the heck out of my hands holding it with my scissors. Now we're going to do this side as well. Sometimes it takes a little bit to know exactly what you want. And this is where, you know, we can plan it out, and we've sort of planned it out quite a bit, but there's only so much you can plan out. And once you get into the moment to moment of the creative process, there are going to be things that show up that maybe you hadn't anticipated. And that's part of what makes this so fun and so cool, is that it sort of grows out of what you are doing in the moment. So see, that looks a little more full below, and I like how that looks better. I'm happy with the neck at that point. Whoops, and I didn't let it dry enough. Definitely have to let it dry enough. Let's pull this up just a little bit. Put a little more glue on there. Is this making sense? Hopefully it is. If not, and you're in my class, please go to our Wild Woman Facebook group page and put some questions in there that I can answer the next time we have a live process. Okay? So for now, this is what my Wild Woman looks like. Okay? Now, as I'm looking at this, she's got a little bit, I'm not sure I like the blue on there as much as I thought I would. So I might alter that later. You do have time to do that. That's not such a big deal. But let's move on to sort of finishing the back, okay? So we have this ugly back piece. And basically we're gonna be taking this stuff that I sent you guys. Sure looks like this, a little more close up, okay? And this is gonna fill in some of the bits in the back. And now I like to have the headdress. I call it a headdress. I don't know if that's really accurate or what it might look like to other people, but I like to have it kind of come up more than what you think it would. And so I found these. You can get these at places like Michael's too, or anywhere that does flowers and things. And so I have these little bits. They're wire, and so this one has I don't know, it's just got some curlicues and things like that that are kind of interesting. And the colors go with this to me. I like to bring that in. Now you can also bring these down into the bottom. And I've done that before too, where you put some of this into the skirt area, right? So it has another layer, but it's completely up to you. I think I'm just gonna take this one and I'm gonna glue it in the back here. And so the idea will be that it's going to stand up above. See how that looks? Oh, the scissors are in the way. It's going to stand up above a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to glue that in first before we put this other fluffy, messy stuff in there. And this one, you're going to want to wait until it dries completely, because especially with these wired pieces, it's really easy to have them negatively impact. And now sometimes what I've done, and I don't know if you can see me doing this, but I'm trying to build a little bit of a loop here, which we can use for hanging as well. Needle nose pliers come in handy. But putting a loop in the back can help you hang it. But I will show you how to do the what do you call it? The oh my goodness, brain. The fishing line, that's what I'm trying to say, the fishing line, okay? And just make sure that's glued on good and tight. If you have any areas that you're a little concerned about being too loose, just glue all that down. You can glue it to the headdress part, glue it to itself, whatever seems to make sense. And I need another glue stick. I guess I'm out. Just getting another glue stick. Okay. And then the last part of this as you take out some of this stuff, it's very messy, so it'll crumble around. Just be prepared. And this again is an inexact science. And what we want to do is just basically cover up all the gluey stuff that we've done back here. All the things that you wouldn't want to see. Even though this is probably going to be hanging up against the wall, I put a bunch of glue gun stuff back here. And we're going to start with a chunk. And literally, you just hold it on. Try to cover or smush it into where you know you put the glue. And you're not going to get all of this glued down. It's just going to be some of it. Again, hold it a bit until you know it's dried on there. Let's see how that's looking. So we need to add a little bit more at the top. I'm going to move these out of the way a little bit, pull this flower forward a little bit. And then we're going to glue, oops, you guys can't see me. I shifted it too much. I'm so sorry. So here's where we're looking. We're looking at the top here. Which way am I going? This part right here. We're going to put a little bit more of the gluey stuff on there. Oop, this one didn't want to hold. Okay. So I'm going to have to hold this until it's more dry. Now this could be anything you want. This is moss that I get at different craft stores, or it's a mossy kind of thing. You could put all kinds of other stuff back here. You could put more flower, you could put leaves, you could put whatever it is that you think goes along with your person. And we're going to glue. I know this is going to be hard to see. I'm going to put a bunch up here too. Okay. We're going to put this at the top here. All right, and holding that down. Again, inexact science. What I'm trying to do is fill in the gaps that I can see. Okay, there's parts of it that aren't quite glued down well, so I'm just going to take some more glue gun and just shove it in there a little bit and hold it with my glue gun. You don't necessarily need it to be solid, but you know, we don't want it to come off. Okay. So far, this is how she's looking. And now you're going to adjust, right? If you want it to come out a little bit more, you can pull on it, or you can add more along here. But for our purposes today, I'm going to call this done. And I'm going to trust that when you are doing this, you're going to be able to figure out how much or how little you want to have on here and adjust accordingly. Again, this stuff will let the glue through. So if you are, if you're doing more glue gunning, use something to hold it in place until it dries enough that it won't burn you, okay? So the last bit of this is really doing some of the finishing touches, okay? So you might want a brooch kind of thing. Again, what things do you want to bring forward from your wild woman? I think I might put this on here, see what this looks like. What you want to bring forward from the meditations, that's what I was trying to say. The meditations that we did in order to find the symbology that you want to bring. Oh, I kind of like how this looks. So taking the ribbon that I was going to use initially for a belt and maybe doing something a little bit different with it. Okay, I think I'm going to maybe make it a bit of a belt, but it's a little bit different. These are the layers. These are the layers of things that's going to not only bring your seeds from the meditation to fruition here, but it's also going to help it have layers of interest, right? As an artist, this is one of the things that we do. We build up. We build up layers, we build up strategies, we build up skills and techniques around that. And maybe I would put the butterfly here, maybe I'd put it here, I'm not sure. But also think about the skirt. So when I do the finishing touches on the skirt, it's pretty easy to come with a, oh, if I had another glue gun, goodness, I'm going through these. It's really easy to come through with just a tiny little drop of glue, right? And then you can put one of the beads on here that say you used up in the headdress. Okay, similar bead up here. Now there's a bead down here. This is how you bring the different structures that you're putting in place to different areas of your design so that there is cohesion and it seems to go together. Even if you're using different kinds of colors, this will help it all kind of fit together. So I'm going to let you decide on how you want to do that, but this is where all those bits come in, and I'm going to put this butterfly right here, I think. Okay. Now some people might want to put things coming down from the hands like ribbons or something like that. You might have all different kinds of ideas of how you want to do this. This is where you get to take it and make it your own. Whatever your process is, however you want it to be. You can put paint, you can put other kinds of materials that you like. You could bring in other flowers if you wanted and stick on the bottom part or in the funky part underneath. There's so many different ways, but that's really the basis of what you need to know in order to finish your Wild Woman. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to go to our Wild Woman Facebook page and drop me a note. Whoops, sorry about that. Trying to get back to the camera so I can see you and you can see my face. If there are any questions, drop me a note in our Facebook page and I can answer them for you. If you are not a student in my class, feel free to join. I'm not sure when the next Wild Woman and Meditation class is going to happen, but I will have it posted up on my website. www.mindycardenas.com is my website. And if I can figure out how to put it on my video, I will. Anyway, thank you for part 2. That's it for part 2. And hopefully I'll see you soon.